Okay. Well, we have some fun things to talk about, but as usual, let's begin with the tech update. Rao, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let me copy or paste the link here. Okay, there's the link to Community Update 231. I'm going to share my screen. So the team is continuing to work on LLBM. It's we're in that mode where the last 5% or 2% is taking longer than expected. There's a lot of discussion going on as they get to this the fringe-based network, fringe-based finalization fringe, and block merge, and what all is there in the state at that time, and whether that is sufficient to be able to resolve the conflicts and move forward. So there's work there that's going on, but the team is getting ever closer to completing that. The PR available for that, I think it's waiting for one more review right now and waiting to be merged. Then after that, there's a couple of other tasks that they need to go through to get to the beta 1 release, which is what basically the focus is for this week and next week, is to get to that beta 1 release.
Actually, I think Tomislav approved NutZipper's PR, so I think that's being merged now.
Last I checked when I was writing this report, it was needing one more review. Anyways, it is ready to be merged. And then there are a few other PRs that are also ready to be merged, and so they're kind of making progress with that. But to get to beta 1 release, there is still some more work that they need to do on the bootstrapping task with that. Stas is continuing his work on block receiver. There were some reviews or in process reviews and comments that he has taken care of, and he's got a little bit more work to do on that. And Will's random seed generation PR is ready to be merged. This is the one that removes timestamp as part of the algorithm for random seed generation, because RChain does not have a timestamp that can be that is used or relied upon anywhere in the code. Then he's got the PR for the new bonding process that is in review, and he is in the process of implementing the request from Dan Connolly for a separate rev address for staking and rewards withdrawals. So that PR is he's still working on it, but the other one on bonding process is ready for review. And the BigInt all work is also waiting for reviews and approvals. And then there was a small PR from Max to implement host check for peers to prevent loopback connections. So sometimes, in the past, it was taking a local host as a default to be able to connect to an all that. So he's cleaned that up. I think those are the main updates on the development cycle. There are a couple of things. I think somebody was asking whether we're going to do anything that is specifically performance focused. As of right now, we're not planning on anything in either beta 1 or beta 2, because all the stuff that all the investigations and work that Dennis has done in the performance area, whatever can be integrated, we already integrated, but a large part of what he's doing, or what he found, we discovered that really it has to wait for Rolang 1.1 native implementation. So that's the reason why we're not including those. But having said that, I think there may be an experienced Rolang resource that worked with us in the past that may be available for some work. So if he is available to come on board, we'll probably begin to get some items knocked out and then plan what kind of things we can do to move towards really the second half goals. I mean, obviously, he's going to focus on whatever is critical and urgent for the current LLBM release. But after those tasks are done, we will kind of do some planning towards the rolling 1.1 related things, and we should see some performance improvement from those. So those, that I think in general is the overall plan and where we are. With that, are there any questions on any of this?
Well, I just want to elaborate. So what's going on with this, the discussion that's happening right now between Notzipper and Anton is they are taking care of the bootstrap process from the last finalized fringe. So for people to understand what that means is this has to do with when a validator has been bonded and they need to catch up to the rest of the validator set. So a given validator set has been running. They're figuring out the next fringe, and a new validator comes in and needs to catch up. Now, in proof of work networks, that validator will go all the way back to Genesis and then roll forward through all of the transaction set, right? So as the protocol ages and ages, that gets longer and longer and longer and longer, right? For us, the validator only has to go back to the last finalized state. And so we've had that working for quite some time, but that was only working in the context of a single chain, not a DAG. And so now what has to happen is the validator has to verify the sort of catch up from the last finalized fringe, and while the next fringe is in flight, they have to verify the pre-state. So that's what is causing the discussion. They're working out for themselves the consequences of assuming that you're only going as far back as the fringe. So that's the total width of the DAG, and going forward to catch up to the rest of the validators. So that's the piece that's under construction right now. And there's an obvious way to do it, and now they just have to implement that. So that's what's this last little piece of work. So for people, the reason I'm giving this level of detail is for people to understand how big a change the block merge is. The block merge has impacted basically every sub feature of the code. So right now, the last little bit is it's changed the bootstrap process for a bonded validator to catch up, right? And so all of these things have had to be refactored as a part of moving to the LLBM or the block merge style of the network. And that's why it has taken so long. Any questions about that? All right. Any other questions for Rao? Okay, thank you, Rao. Appreciate it. All right, so I want to congratulate the co-op. It was a very arduous process. The special meeting, the special vote, was months and months of preparation and planning on behalf of the staff and executive and the board, and weeks and weeks of deliberation and debate and discussion within the community so that they understood what the issues were and could give good alternative language that something that we knew we could get some consensus around. And so, without further ado, I will say that the IOBs passed. They officially passed. We achieved quorum, and the IOBs won overwhelmingly. So I think everyone should breathe a sigh of relief. This is awesome. We've now the funding that we've got makes sense, right? So we've mutually executed a term sheet, and we can work within the parameters of the IOBs to make that work for us. So this is fantastic. This is and I just want to say that the democracy is messy, but it's the kind of mess that you see, when you go for a walk in the forest and you see, the sort of the dirt and the leaves and all the mess on the ground. It's that kind of mess, the mess from which life springs forth and bears fruit. I'm very, very pleased to be engaged with this community because we're learning how to trust each other. We're learning how to debate and deliberate and to use democracy, to use this form of governance and the on-chain tools that we have developed to support that governance to manage the protocol, right? What happened was the will of the RChain membership. And that's amazing. I think everyone should be proud and excited about that. Any questions or comments about the IOBs or the vote?
Of course, there's that famous quote, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones.
That's right, exactly. When Churchill knew exactly what he was talking about.
Churchill, yes, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that the thing about it is, it's the sort of mess that is necessary for life to show up, and that's what is so striking to me about it. It can't ever be tidy. If things get too tidy, then it isn't life. life surfs at the edge of chaos.
Having researched collective intelligence for 50 or so years, I would have to disagree with you in that we can do fully decentralized decision making, though, without and develop a collective intelligence, whereas pure democracy tends to develop a collective stupidity.
I hear you, Jim. I've witnessed this, myself. It is absolutely possible with practice to develop a collective intelligence. But I think we have to understand. Go ahead.
I think that we got a collective intelligence in a sense through a lot of hard work of a lot of people, including myself, answering people's questions and rallying people behind us. I think in this case we succeeded, although it's very dubious. I'm hoping to get some people from the collective intelligence community involved in the RGOV, which is a substrate for building autonomous, for decentralized autonomous governance.
Yeah, no, I hear you. When I think about my own experience with collective intelligence, nothing fosters collective intelligence more than working together.
Yes.
I mean, that is to me, more than anything else, you know, whatever it is, if you're getting together to clean up a beach, or, you know, you're getting together to weed the garden, or you're getting together to build some software, whatever it is, if you're working together, that container of working towards a common goal, that creates a kind of collective intelligence faster and more effectively than in anything else. And the higher dimensional it is, right? So software is lower dimensional in many respects than, say, cleaning up a beach, because it doesn't necessarily involve your body in the same way that cleaning up a beach involves your body, right? But the higher dimensional the common work is, so it involves more and more and more of your being, the more likely that you get a more coherent collective intelligence arising. But these are all wonderful things that we get a chance to talk about, and they're relevant because we're working on RChain. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, you know, when we were working on, you know, group decision support, you know, communications back in the 70s, you know, when the head of the computer science department said nobody would ever waste the power of a computer doing electronic mail, nobody understood what we were doing. We were just too far ahead of our time. And, you know, in a sense, I guess Theo brought up at the members meeting that we have the same situation with RChain. We're so far ahead of our time that it's very hard for us to get people to understand what we're doing. And it really, there's so many aspects of it. It's such a big thing that, you know, it doesn't really fit in anybody's brain except maybe yours. But
well, no, I think you're right. It requires the collective intelligence for RChain to fit. You know, it's like it's not one brain, but many brains that required to hold it.
Yeah. And you know, I guess, you know, once we really deliver a functional chain, after, I mean, it's functional now, but I mean, there is a lot to be done, and it's going to take a long time for us to do all the optimizations and other things that are necessary. But the thing is that we have the idea, we have the direction, we know where we're going, and we're the only chain that's I know of that is decentralized in so many ways. You know, with the sharding and process calculus, you know, the parallelism potential, it's uncomparable, and yet, you know, it's very hard to get that message across.
I agree, and I think you're absolutely right. So one of the things that is so challenging in this particular setting is that every single thing that we're doing requires a kind of context switch, you know, a kind of shift in one's thinking. Like concurrency really requires a mind shift, like to really understand why it's so slippery. Requires, you know, that you've lived it and breathed it for a long time, and you know, most people haven't done that. There's a reason why compositionality and concurrency are blind spots in the culture, right? So that's just one of the things, right? You know, there's the whole consensus algorithm mind shift, right? There's the fact that even amongst blockchains, we're not focused on store of value capabilities. We're focused on utility tokens to deliver global compute, right? Even that is you know, like in every single arena where we might have discourse, we're we're in the upper left quadrant. We're far away from the others. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So let's see. I do want to give Daryl a chance to do the week in review, and then I want to talk about a couple of other fun things that are really interesting. Daryl, are you ready?
Yeah. So here's the week in review from June 30th to today, July 6th. Last Friday in the Climate Coordination RCast, we discussed the new solar-powered car called the Lightyear Zero. Microplastics being carriers of viruses and the Supreme Court's decision impacting climate change in the EPA. And Greg also gave us a preview of his next article that he's writing with Ralph Benko. Yesterday in the Communications Working Group, we discussed how to improve voter turnout for elections, coordinating marketing plans for the next milestones coming through the summer, how best to promote the private member sales, and featuring the ecosystem dApps on the front page of the RChain website. This morning in the active members hangout, Jim gave an update on his health, and then we mainly discussed how to make voting easier and improve member engagement in the voting process. And that brings us to now.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for Daryl? Okay. So you didn't mention the Casper, I guess because I didn't get you the Casper stand-up. So I'll speak to that. Part of the reason I didn't get you the Casper stand-up is I forgot to hit the record button for this week's Casper. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So this week we discussed on Casper. We discussed some of the work that Mike and I are doing on see if we can take another run at Christian's construction to extend it to linear collections. So that's what's it's actually a really a bit of mathematics, but I won't go into it here because it's pretty abstract. But I do, but in terms of interesting mathematics, for the last couple of years, I have realized that for RChain to deliver a lot of the business functions that we want to deliver, we need to have a good definition of entropy as it applies to row calculus processes. And there are a lot of proposals for the relationship between entropy and computation and entropy and information. But it's clear that if you want the right picture, you need to look at non-equilibrium style thermodynamics. And very recently, Tom Leinster has produced a book called Entropy and Diversity. So his aim was to be able to provide a framework for people who are attempting to measure biodiversity, so that they, that turns out to be quite an interesting challenge to relate all of the different proposals for biodiversity. And Leinster has shown that all of them correlate to a notion of entropy, that every single proposal that makes any sense and has good properties relates to entropy. So that framework is looking quite positive for providing a notion of entropy and diversity, for that matter, for row-lang programs. And more recently, there a group of scientists and mathematicians have gotten quite sophisticated measures using something called assembly theory. And one way to think about assembly theory arises from the observation that the combinatorial space of chemistry exceeds the substrate on which chemistry operates. So the total combinatorics arising from molecules and sort of the chemistry of these larger molecules, not just elements, but the larger molecules, is bigger than all of the materials available in the entire universe, or at least that's the way the assembly theorists present it. I haven't done the math to go and check and see if that lines up. But if we take their arguments at face value, then they're suggesting that all of the different ways that you could make molecular structure and all of the different kinds of molecular structure, that space of possibilities is bigger than what you can realize if you had all of the materials in the universe available to you. And so you have to come up with reasons for why we see some molecules and not others. And assembly theory is basically the sort of accounting that one does in order to come up with decent explanations for that. So essentially what they do is they take a given structure, they look at all the ways to build that structure using more fundamental building blocks, like how the structure arises, the components of the structure, and then calculate kind of the shortest path through that possibility space to arrive at the structure in question. And that's called the assembly index. And that index is a good measure of complexity that starts to give us a handle on questions like, why are we seeing some molecules and not others? Their proposal is that this gives rise to measuring the sort of phase transition to go from chemical structure to biological structure. Whether or not that's the case, what we can do is to apply their techniques. So just to be clear, their techniques are an exact science for chemistry. So you can calculate using mass spec exactly the assembly index for molecular structures. And intriguingly, you can do the same thing for various computational universes. So you can do that for row calculus expressions, aka row-length programs. So this is great, right? It means we have a complexity measure that allows us to do some significant stratification of row-length programs. I'll stop there. See if there are any questions.
I have a comment. I mean, as an information physicist wannabe, I've been concerned about entropy with respect to RChain for a long time. It sounds like there's some very interesting things happening there, although I'm not sure I'm not going to go through the mathematics of it right now.
You're absolutely right. Really good stuff is happening. So Leinster's work, entropy and diversity, that's something to look at. I mean, it is math heavy, but he also tries to give English language intuitions. And the same is true of the assembly theory stuff. So there's a great talk to the Santa Fe Institute by one of the leading assembly theorists. There's also a lot of the NASA crowd has picked up on the assembly theory stuff, and so it has good pedigree. It's got good people working on it, people who have established work in the sciences and mathematics. So it's not airy fairy woo stuff. It's real. So you can go check it out, and there are good intuitive explanations.
Wouldn't that? I mean, it sounds like it's more about emergence than information loss. I don't know. I will check into it.
I mean, basically, you know, like in order for this stuff to work, you've got to come up with a measure of complexity that takes time evolution into consideration, right? And entropy, as the Shannon style entropy, is entirely dominated by structural complexity with no time evolution, right? And that's kind of the difference between that's the ontological difference between Shannon entropy and, say, you know, the sort of measures of complexity that we get when we do sort of standard complexity theory for Turing machines. So
I think of it in terms of nature, really, where, you know, there's no information loss at the quantum level, and yet we lose, you know, half the information into space at light speed, unretrievable, so that we have a conservation of energy here and an expanding future.
Yeah.
It's hidden information, not lost information.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of crazy questions that we still don't quite have good answers to with respect to information, entropy, black holes, and gravity, right? That's still all being worked out. So at the classical physics level, you know, classical Einsteinian gravitation and quantum information, they still have a lot to say to each other. Yeah. But to me, the thing that's the assembly theory stuff is something that I can apply right now to Erlang programs. Like without, like I don't, like we don't have, you know, there's no like special decoder ring or adapter, right? We can apply the framework immediately to Erlang programs and get good complexity measures. So that's awesome.
So we don't have to consider ER equals ZPR.
No. All right. So let's see. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns, considerations from the community?
I just wanted to say that in October is our annual general meeting, and the month of July will be kicking off the process in preparation for that. So just wanted to put out a request for anyone who might be interested in participating in the nominating committee. Go ahead and contact RChain Cooperative. And that nominating committee is the group that does the review and interviewing of the board candidates. So just wanted to share that.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. That was very, very important comment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else from anyone?
I would mention that if anyone has ideas for items of business, they also contact the co-op or for the meeting.
Yes, and Ian did put in the chat the email address. So it's nom dash. So I'm going to have to just sort of say out the letters here. NOM dash CMTE at RChain.coop. So it's essentially nom committee at RChain.coop, But once again, that's nom-cmte@rchain.coop. So send an email to that email address if you're interested in participating in the nominating committee or want to share any IOBs proposals.
Yeah. And again, I just want to say that I'm so thrilled. I feel like RChain is reaching a different kind of maturity to be able to have a community-wide special vote like this. It's like no other chain that I know of has this kind of governance, right? This is real democracy in action with actual on-chain tools to support the democratic process. I just don't know any other chain that has this this kind of community and this kind of maturity to have real mission critical items in front of it, to have real debate, real deliberation, compromises on all sides, champions and advocates and criticizers, the whole 9 yards. We should be proud of what we've done. I don't know any other way to say it. We should be proud of what we've done as a community. We haven't just built amazing technology. We built an amazing community.
Yeah,
so with
absolutely.
That, yeah. With that, I'd like to wish everyone, please stay safe. Please enjoy the summer. Right, we're radically approaching the halfway point for the summer. So July 21st is the halfway point for the summer. Or sorry, is that right? No, July, I guess August 1st or so, or thereabouts is the halfway point for the summer. So please get out and enjoy it, and we will see you on the other side.